It was jarring, the anomaly of just one group. The world seemed to gasp collectively at the behavior of two distinct North American groups at the buffet. In Barcelona, a locale favored by global tourists, a server named Elena, who worked at a high-end hotel restaurant, swore she would never forget some of the scenes she witnessed. Elena confessed with a slight cringe. "Honestly, I had a bit of a negative bias against the Francophone Canadians when I first started." She explained that when she began her job, she often encountered guests who spoke little to no Spanish or English, which caused significant stress. The Quebecois guests in particular often had this tendency, a pronounced language barrier. Elena was initially perplexed, thinking that foreign guests staying at a premium hotel would by default be English-speaking. However, many Francophone Canadians struggled with even basic English phrases, looking bewildered by simple instructions. Despite widespread English education in Canada in fast-paced everyday communication, many Quebecers appeared reserved. It's often said that fluent English speakers are a distinct minority of the total population there. Elena used to wonder why this was the case, but she quickly noticed their characteristics. They were shy, soft-spoken, and never raised their voices. When asked a question, they would often just smile awkwardly and tilt their heads. She admitted that their overly quiet demeanor initially rubbed her the wrong way. Is that province of Canada just overly reserved? They always seemed like such an intensely introverted nation. Elena, who had never visited Quebec and had no Quebecois friends, had unknowingly developed a deep-seated prejudice. However, an incident at the evening dinner buffet completely shattered Elena's perception of that part of Canada. The buffet line laden with Spanish and Catalan delicacies was as always bustling during the evening rush. Throngs of guests arrived for dinner. The savory scent of roasted chicken, the rich spice of gambas al ajillo garlic shrimp, the aromatic seafood paella, and the famed gazpacho, these dishes were visually and gastronomically tempting. Everyone seemed impatient, barely waiting in line. It was then that the group Elena privately nicknamed the Calm Before the Storm appeared. "Oh, the large American tour group. They're back again today," she steeled herself. With their arrival, the atmosphere in the restaurant completely shifted. The area around the buffet instantly morphed into a battlefield. From the moment they entered, their presence exploded. Speaking loudly, moving aggressively, everyone acted as if they owned the place. When Elena asked them to wait momentarily because seating was being prepared, a booming shout flew back. "We're paying guests staying right here." Their volume was already at a level that required no microphone. Conversations at other tables instantly ceased. Once seated, the performance truly began. They sprinted full speed toward the buffet. By the paella station, they shoved each other, wrestling for the shrimp and mussels, hoisting their plates high like a rebound battle in a basketball game. They brazenly scooped portions that were clearly more than single servings. And this was just the beginning. Some built veritable towers of food on their plates, reaching an almost artistic height. Their disregard for the food's integrity was such that those around them worried the towers would collapse at any moment. Naturally, the concept of a line seemed not to exist in their vocabulary. Their core strategy was to find gaps and cut in rather than wait patiently. Their logic seemed to be being polite in the face of good food is a waste of time. And then came the even more shocking sight. The shouting and aggressive posturing quieted. Grabbing food with their hands was their instinctive style. They calmly walked away to their next target, leaving behind significant untouched portions. Tables were piled with uneaten dishes. Elena and the other servers could only sigh, knowing this is all going straight to waste. If anyone tried to politely remind them, they would become instantly defensive and angry, retorting, "It's a buffet! What's wrong with taking as much as I want?" While leaving food might be seen in some cultures as a sign of wealth for the service staff, it was a massive source of stress. This is a standard buffet, not a survival game, Elena often thought. Despite this, Elena remained professional, serving every day with a smile. But one evening, she finally reached her breaking point. As usual, the restaurant was packed and all staff were rushing around frantically. That night, the familiar American tour group was present again. The air seemed to tremble in the wake of their voices. The buffet's main feature that day was the hotel's renowned slow-roasted Catalan chicken and a fluffy tortilla española, both proudly announced by the chef as his masterpieces. These dishes quickly became artistic monuments of waste, stacked high on their tables. Their assault on the Catalan chicken station was so intense it was as if gold bars were hidden inside. Elena remembered seeing guests who were still waiting in line stare in utter disbelief. What troubled Elena even more was the cleanup. After the American guests left, the tables looked like a museum exhibit of a buffet catastrophe. Rice grains were scattered on the chairs, pieces of noodle lay stuck to the floor. Spilled sangria silently protested. Why is it always like this? Elena sighed, inadvertently spotting a tip left on the table. In that moment, her feelings became complex. It felt like a silent message. Take this and let's call everything even. Yes, they seemed to think they could solve all rudeness and clean up hassle with a single banknote. It was like a villain in a drama saying, "It's all yours," and leaving with a piece of paper meant to negate the sheer hard work of the staff. A sharp pain pierced Elena's heart. Nonetheless, Elena smiled, said, "Thank you," and continued clearing the table. This was professionalism, but that night it was different. One male guest saw the sign indicating a charge for premium beverages and erupted in fury. Slamming his wine glass onto the table, he yelled, "Why is this wine not included? Who pays if there's no suitable drink pairing?" Elena's hand froze. Her eyes wide, she stood still. Who pays? This was beyond a complaint. It was like the sequel to a fictional manifesto. To finally satisfy him, Elena had to explain for over an hour. With every explanation, her spirit was chipped away. Something snapped inside Elena. I can't take this anymore. It was said that was the first night she cried in the staff room. No matter how hard she tried, her care and concern were not acknowledged by the guest. Maybe I'm just viewed as a plate-clearing machine. That deep sadness filled her heart. The next day, Elena arrived at work earlier than usual. Less than 24 hours had passed since the absurd demand for a free bottle of wine. She silently prayed for a quiet day. Just then, an Asian group of 8 appeared at the restaurant entrance, an elderly couple, 2 younger couples who seemed to be their children and children. Their faces held the serene expression of those enjoying their sightseeing. The older gentleman, speaking English but with extreme politeness, asked, "May we come in?" Elena was taken aback. They lacked the assumption of entitlement and seemed hesitant due to their group size coming across as modest and respectful. "What, may we come in? Of course you can." Despite the table being ready, their polite inquiry made Elena feel slightly embarrassed. They are the francophone Canadians, Elena thought. Ah, the overly quiet ones again. Well, at least it's better than the loud ones. As she led them to their seats, the children were held by their parents, neither running nor shouting. Elena glanced at the buffet. Predictably, a crowd was already gathering around the popular dishes, the garlic shrimp, the spring rolls, the savory roasted chicken, and the spicy sour gazpacho. In Elena's experience, if the American group were here, this would definitely turn into a food-grabbing frenzy. But this francophone Canadian group was different. Faced with a row of popular dishes, not one of them piled their plate high. They only took small sampling portions of various items and ate slowly. The gambas al ajillo station in particular baffled Elena. An American group would take portions large enough to nearly empty the pot, but the Quebecers didn't. They didn't cut the line or intrude. If someone was ahead of them, they waited quietly. From an observer's perspective, the culture of waiting seemed ingrained in their very being. When their turn came, they took only a small amount, placing it gently on a corner of their plate. Their attitude suggested they weren't enjoying an all-you-can-eat experience, but maintaining a cautious, let's try this first approach. The most surprising moment involved a boy of about 10. While taking food, his small hand accidentally knocked a utensil. As the noise rang out, the child immediately bowed slightly to Elena and said, "Je m'excuse, I apologize." His parents instantly rushed over, saying, "Nous sommes désolés, c'est très impoli. We are very sorry, that was rude." This extremely courteous interaction made Elena momentarily feel as if she wasn't in a hotel buffet, but at some high-end private family gathering. They took their food, ate, and talked with smiles, yet never once disturbed guests at other tables. Elena was profoundly shocked that such quiet, comfortable as air guests could exist. Why? Why are they so different? Elena kept recalling the reserved dining scene of the Quebecois group. She couldn't help but mutter to herself, do they not like Spanish food? Because they were so overly reserved, so overly polite. Elena assumed they didn't like the taste. So Elena took a deep breath and decided to speak up. "Is the food not to your liking?" she asked gently, a trace of anxiety in her voice. They immediately broke into bright, happy smiles. It is excellent. We love Spanish cuisine." Hearing the reply, Elena couldn't help but gape. Huh. It's good, then why don't you eat more? Elena felt relieved because their response was friendlier than expected. Next, she pulled out her phone and used a translation app to show a message. Why are you only taking this much? It's a buffet. It's okay to eat more. One of the men immediately took out his own phone and showed her the translation screen. It read, "The food is so delicious, other guests must want to try it too. We can't monopolize the good dishes. They should be shared by everyone." In that instant, time seemed to stand still. That phrase hit Elena with the force of a revelation. What is this? Such a thought exists. For Elena, who had always been deeply immersed in a culture where the buffet meant first come, first served, take it or lose it, and don't eat, lose money. This mindset felt like it came from another dimension. Because it's good, they want to share it. This thought awakened her. Elena strongly felt that the Quebecois group's every move transcended mere politeness. Their actions stemmed from deep consideration and care for others, and this consideration even extended to the service staff. When she tried hard to explain a dish, they would smile and say merci. Even just for refilling their water, they would thank her repeatedly. When she went to clear their plates, some even proactively handed them to her. Their attitude warmed Elena's heart. She truly felt that these people weren't just here to eat. They cherished the space to ensure everyone, including the cleaners, had a pleasant time. There was one more unforgettable moment. A little girl softly said, "Maman, food tastes better when everyone shares, right?" The moment Elena heard this, she thought, this child will surely grow up to be a person who cherishes others. The quiet, beautiful evening with the Francophone Canadians concluded. But this was not the end. It was the start of Elena's desire to understand Quebec better. Elena had often heard the phrase, "the customer is king," but in her experience, she had hardly ever truly felt it. On the contrary, she spent her days dealing with people who roared like gods or acted like despots, not kings. But the Quebecers were different. They didn't use their status as a shield. Instead, they seemed constantly aware that they were the ones receiving a service. "Thank you," that was the word they repeated countless times throughout the evening. Even if an explanation was unclear, they would smile, nod, say, "C'est pas grave, it's not serious," and then say, "Merci beaucoup" again. It was like magic. How many times did that short phrase save Elena and her colleagues? It wasn't merely a transactional "thank you" for a service received. It was filled with genuine emotion, a natural and warm expression. Even more surprising was their behavior. If a child dropped a fork, the parents would quickly pick it up and apologize profusely. "So sorry." They would neatly stack used plates on the table, making clearing easier. If a napkin or a bread roll fell, they wouldn't ignore it, but pick it up and hand it to her, saying, "Please, could you replace this?" When someone tried to pull out a chair near their table, they would slightly tuck their own chairs in, making a path. The atmosphere in that space suggested that everyone was jointly using this public restaurant space with courtesy. Elena couldn't help but think, these people are not customers. They are co-participants. On the restaurant stage, sometimes the servers were the main actors, sometimes the dishes, but throughout all these moments, the Quebecois guests were the quiet accompanists. This was a form of respect not written in any manual. And this wasn't limited to the restaurant. It was a sentiment shared unanimously by all hotel staff. The Francophone Canadian guests are truly different. They are people who act with consideration for others. We actually draw strength from them. Not just Elena, but the chefs, the front desk staff, the housekeeping crew, everyone was moved by their actions. After finishing her restaurant shift, Elena often chatted with Carmen, a housekeeping colleague in the staff room. That day, the topic naturally shifted from the recently checked-out Quebecois group to the guest rooms. "Hey, Elena, did you see the Quebecois room?" Carmen asked the moment she started. "Not yet," Elena replied. Carmen smiled. "Immaculately clean is why." The rooms the Quebecois stayed in were so tidy it felt like they barely needed cleaning. Used towels were neatly gathered in one spot. Trash was sorted and bagged, placed in a corner. Carmen said emotionally, the room looked like it was trying to quietly hide the fact that anyone had stayed there. What surprised her most was the bedding. It was neatly folded. Sheets and pillowcases were collected together. "I never thought anyone would help fold the bedding," she said. "They must have wanted to make our job easier." Elena nodded in agreement. The rooms left by the American tourists, on the other hand, were a different universe. Pillows were on the floor. Wet towels were rolled up and casually tossed aside. Despite there being a trash can, plastic bottles and snack wrappers were strewn across the floor. A mysterious red residue was scattered on the desk. You had to look closely, sniffing for an exotic spice before realizing it was likely residue from a personal American-style herbal drink they had consumed. The sink was coated with used cotton swabs and tissues. Toilet paper was ripped up and scattered. Carmen joked, laughing, "Before we can even take out the trash, we need to conduct a crime scene investigation." She conceded that there were polite American guests, but when they checked in as large groups, the probability of the room being trashed definitely increased. It was common to find an envelope containing a sizable tip, but Carmen often felt an emptiness. She said, "While the money is appreciated, honestly, what makes us happiest is seeing a clean room that was maintained with the next user in mind." And in this situation, the Quebecers hadn't left cash, but they had left a trace of their heart, a handwritten "Merci pour votre service" note, a neatly folded towel, and an ambient cleanliness felt the moment you entered the room. They hadn't left money, but their sincerity had certainly remained. Elena agreed with Carmen. Housekeeping is often overlooked, but precisely for that reason, it is the place that reveals a person's true nature best. The staff unanimously agreed Quebecers think of others in the places no one sees. They don't just focus on their own convenience, but imagine how the next person will feel. This was exactly what Elena felt in the restaurant. Despite the difference in province and language, one could instantly tell from the room that these were people who lived for others. As this feeling settled in Elena's heart, she began to confront the prejudices she once held. "Honestly, I initially had a bad impression of the Quebecers, but now it's completely different." That night in the restaurant and those immaculately cleaned hotel rooms taught her that hearts can communicate even without words. She never imagined that even without speaking fluent English, they could convey so much. Each Quebecois person seemed to carry consideration for others as a matter of course. Elena felt that this wasn't just a set of rules, but the very culture that had been naturally nurtured since childhood. Even the children spoke words of empathy that must mean their family education was very thorough, she thought. I suppose the concept of thinking of others is widespread in that society. Elena had always believed that the Spanish people themselves possessed a gentle and courteous national character, but the Quebecois behavior concealed an even deeper layer of consideration. For example, when an American guest was shouting at a server, a Quebecois couple quietly expressed their concern to Elena Chava, "Please don't push yourself too hard." This was genuine concern, not documented in any societal handbook. Elena reflected, "Did I truly understand these people? I had so many misunderstandings, but the ones who gently corrected me were the Quebecois." For Elena, it was a miracle that unfolded before her eyes. They changed a person's heart simply by not getting angry, not pointing fingers, and quietly going about their business. If my children wanted to study abroad, I would unhesitatingly recommend Canada. Elena was now convinced that they would be surrounded by gentle people there, and would learn consideration better than anywhere else. "I truly respect Quebec now, from the bottom of my heart." When Elena said this, her eyes sparkled with pride. "What do you think? In an environment like a buffet, where one is free to indulge and take as much as they want, perhaps a person's true nature is best revealed." While Elena was moved by the Quebecois, the Spanish people too hold the precious value of not wasting food. Spaniards also possess a culture of truly appreciating food and thanking the chef. It is even said that every grain of rice holds a spirit. It was precisely because of this that the Quebecois' actions in sharing their food and cleaning their plates felt to Elena like a beautiful overlap with her own culture. I believe that even if countries and religions differ, that feeling of respecting food for the sake of others can surely become a bridge of kindness connecting the world. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like the video. We look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.